I used to feel an indescribable peace in my prayers, but I haven't felt it in a while, and I want it back. I want to share with you something that God has shown me and given me. Often you'll hear people talking about supernatural encounters that they had with God. Maybe they got a demon cast out of them. Maybe they had a vision or something. Maybe they had their child be healed from a disease. And I would always hear these stories and I'd always want to experience that too. Like, I always wanted so bad to have like this supernatural encounter with God. And now I can say that I'm one of those people. And what I've been through was not a visual experience, but it was an emotional one. But let me give you a bit of context first so you can better understand what it was. As a kid, I grew up pretty normal, nothing crazy. But when I started going into school, especially high school, and keep in mind, I'm 19 and I graduated when I was 18. So most of my life has been in school. When I was in school, I was always so anxious because, man, keeping my grades up, I could do it for a while. But throughout my whole life, I've been I said this in my last video, I've been a pretty bad procrastinator. And, but it wasn't hurting my grades, up until later on in high school. But school always kept me in a constant state of stress, whether it was the classes themselves that I hated, like most of them. I thought that a lot of them didn't even teach anything useful at all, or they just straight up teach you wrong information, especially in history class, dude. Like nowadays, public school history class, I'm not a huge fan of that. And also having to wake up super early, like school should not start this early, dude. Especially with me, like being, my whole life I've kind of been a night owl, and I could just never get myself to go to bed early. And obviously that was not good for stress. I was not getting good sleep a lot of my life. And even during breaks too, like summer, I would be stressing that I had to go back to school eventually. And because of that, I never really knew true peace. I thought it wasn't something that I thought about, but, I thought that my life was, fine. It was peaceful because I never had true peace to compare it to. So when I became Christian, around, I think it was, 7th grade, I was still stressed all the time. And I would, I conceptually, I knew about God's peace. I knew that it was a thing, but it was never something that I really experienced. So fast forward to senior year, and that's when my relationship with God really took off. That's when I had probably the most growth in my relationship with God. And that's really when I started to feel, to have way more intimate moments with God in prayer. And that's due to one major change in my prayers that caused that to happen. And that is, I started praying, not, a big issue that I had for a long time is that I would pray and just ask God for things. God to, and it would be, sincere things to ask for. It wasn't like bad requests or anything, something that was unreasonable to ask God. But I never really went into prayer just to seek God in Himself. I wasn't going to prayer to have a connection with God. I was praying because I wanted a genie that could resolve my issues. But that's what changed starting senior year. I started praying because I wanted to connect with God and not because I just wanted to ask Him for things. So let me tell you about probably the most intense and the most vivid prayer experience that I've probably ever had. So let me take you into this experience and try to explain just how amazing what God gave me was. So I think this was around December of last year. I had already graduated, and it was in the middle of the night. I think, I don't know, might have been like 1 or 2 a.m. Dark outside, snow everywhere. And I just decided I'm gonna go for a walk. And this is something that I used to do pretty often. I still do on occasion. I would go for late night walks and just talk to God. I feel like, for me, that was a really smooth way of getting into prayer and being able to speak with God. So that's what I decided to do on this day. But before I even got out of my house, I decided that this day, the only reason that I would go out there to pray was for a connection with God. The only reason why I wanted to go out there that night was to seek a connection with God and nothing else. So I start walking, and as soon as I leave my driveway, already the atmosphere is a little different. It's not really quite the same. It already feels, the atmosphere already feels a little bit heavier. So I'm walking in, I just start having a conversation with God, and I just tell him how much he means to me. I tell him what I think of him. I tell him how much I love him. And I just keep doing that for a while. And I felt this really strong sense that every step that I was taking was a gift from God. Like, it's really hard to explain because I don't think I felt this sense. During that prayer, I was grateful for every individual step that I was taking. In that moment, I told God, and I was realizing that, I am in his, the planet is his creation. I am in his house. And if he wanted to kick me out at any second, he could. And just the fact that I'm able to be here and be alive, I just felt so grateful for that. And as I was saying all this, all of a sudden I feel this incredibly intense feeling in my chest. It was like, I felt like an intense weight, like kind of like I would say an intense pressure on my chest, but like not, it didn't feel, it wasn't bad. It wasn't like an oppressive pressure. It felt like this intense press of love, like just complete love and peace and just gratefulness, every good feeling. Like, I mean, it's like 100 times better than any emotion that I felt for any other reason that wasn't related to God. And I just start bawling like my eyes out. I just start crying so hard, like it was uncontrollable, but it felt so good. It wasn't a bad cry. It was, it was such a good cry, man. Like, I used to be this person, like when I was younger, that I thought men couldn't cry and all this, and men need to be not emotional. But when you're in the presence of God, man, like, cry all you want. Like, dude, it's such a good feeling. And when I tell you that I felt invincible, I mean, I felt like I could have done absolutely anything. I felt indestructible. Like, the presence of God, and that's what I would call it. I think it was just such a strong presence of God. I felt like God was literally like right there, like right in my chest. God was right there. He was right with me in that exact moment. He was not a millimeter away from me. He was there. And that feeling, oh my goodness, man. I just felt so like, I felt so incredible. I felt like there's just nothing better. There was nothing better. I felt higher than any mountain. I felt untouchable. I felt like nothing could harm me because God was right there. Nothing was going to touch me. So I felt that for a little while, and then I started walking home. And when I started walking home, the intensity kind of went away. I wasn't as intense as I was walking home, but what really lingered and stayed for a long time, until I went to sleep, was this incredible sense of peace. I really started to understand the perfect peace that they talk about in the Bible. Like in Isaiah 26:3, it says, God keeps in perfect peace whose mind is on him. And I felt that perfect peace, man. I felt that the peace that surpasses all understanding. I felt it at that moment. I truly felt it. Like, I don't know how to describe it. Like, I just felt so whole. Like, I felt like I was missing nothing. It was like a spiritual satiation. Even though I didn't hear God, even though I didn't see God, I felt him. I felt him in here. It's the most incredible feeling you could ever feel. Nothing that I've experienced has come close to the sort of feeling that I've gotten in my most intimate times with God. So if you remember what I said at the start, I said that I haven't felt this peace in a while and that I want it back. I used to feel this peace pretty regularly in my prayers. It wasn't always that intense as I described, but I haven't been feeling that lately because I guess I just haven't been seeking God as much as I should. But yeah, it's just, now I'm just trying to seek that again. So my phone ran out of storage and I'm in my garage now. But anyways, what I was saying is, the emotion, it came naturally when I was appreciating the connection with God. The emotion came naturally when I was there to seek after God and not to seek after the emotion itself or the experience itself. So if you want a taste of what I've been able to personally experience, and maybe you don't know what to say in your prayers, because that was a big struggle for me for a long time. I just didn't know, when I was a younger Christian, I didn't really know what to say in my prayers besides just asking him for help with things in my life. And what I've discovered that has worked for me personally, and I've heard it work for a lot of other people, is just be completely sincere with God. Tell him everything that's on your mind. Tell him sincerely what you feel about him. Confess your sins to God. Even if you're feeling hateful towards somebody and that's wrong, tell God that. Tell God, hey, I hate this person, but please change my heart. Don't try to make things sound nicer, Be sincere, be raw with your emotions and what you're feeling. Tell God exactly how you're feeling. And if it's something that you shouldn't be feeling, ask him, tell him that you're feeling that way. Don't hide it, and then ask him to help you with that. And by doing that, I'm not guaranteeing you that you're gonna feel exactly what I felt, that you're gonna have the same exact experience that I did. But I will tell you that that's gonna definitely help you build your relationship with God. So my main message is struggles will come and life will be hard and there will be stress, but true peace can be found in Jesus. The peace from God is the best peace that you could ever have. And the peace from God is better than any other method that you could find. For me personally, the peace from God is better than any peace that you'll find anywhere else from any other method. Me personally, I have tried meditation, for example, and although it did have some positive effects, it was nowhere near close what God has given me. Jesus said in John 16:33, I have said these things to you, that in me you may have peace. In the world you will have tribulation, but take heart, I have overcome the world. So yeah, let me know in the comments if you've had a similar experience, or even maybe something completely different, but it was still an encounter with God. I'd really like to Okay, bro, how does one thunderbolt last that long? Are you serious? So yeah, let me know if you've had an experience yourself that maybe was similar to mine. I'd really like to hear anything that you guys have to say in the comments. I do read them. Your support really goes a long way. And if usually you just watch and you don't like or comment, even just leaving a comment, anything that you'd like to say really does help.
And I love reading your guys' comments. That's really the main thing. More than even more so than the likes. I really like seeing the comments. But yeah, that's it. Thank you so much for watching. I love you guys.